thank you everyone for joining us. Today we're going to be going through for the Advanced Competition Management webinar. Some of what we'll go through, some of you may already know, but hopefully you'll learn a few extra things along the way. So the three topics that we're going to be covering is Eclectic, multi-round, and order of merit. So we'll start on the order of the Eclectic. So if you were in the admin portal, you would go to competitions and then Eclectic. So I've already created one that we're going to use for today's session here. But if you were creating one from scratch, you would simply click on the create new option here and you'd be able to go through all the options here. Now, I'll go into the one that I've got because I've already filled out some sections and it'll make more sense to explain what I've entered in. So when we go to the one I've clicked on, if I click on the edit button here, so with your Eclectic, you would usually give it, a title, and then you would put in your date range. A lot of Eclectics will go for a 1-year date range, so I've set a year there. You would then choose your golf course. So most of the time that will be your GA course or your 18-hole course. And you can also choose your grade separation. So for this example, I've chosen no grades because I've only added 4 people in for the test. But if you had 100 members or more you were putting in, you can definitely split it into grades of A, B, and C. You can click on a new grade template if you don't have one, or you can click on the drop down to select ones that you may already have. Okay, and then with the options below, so if you wanted to use a Stableford Eclectic, if you ticked that would basically be using daily handicaps. So it's going to give, the best Stableford points that you get per hole. So if you got 3 week 1 and then on hole 1, for example, and then week 2, you might get 2 points, it would replace that. So the Stableford one always uses daily handicap. So you wouldn't need to fill out any of these options down here. But for this option, I'm using a net option. So I haven't ticked Stableford. And with the net percent to calculate score, this just allows you to even the stakes a little bit because you might have some C grade or D grade members that might have quite high handicaps. So for them, it would be a little bit easier for them to get a better score. They've got more shots to play with. So what a lot of clubs will do is they'll put in maybe 75 in here or 50. And what that refers to is if someone was off, say, a 10 for their daily handicap, if we put in 75 there, that's the percentage. So that would bring it down to 7.5 if someone had a 10 handicap. So obviously for the people in C grade and D grade, that would bring them down a lot more. And that just sort of evens the stakes for the lower people. Okay, and then when we go down further, you would tick, male or female, depending on who you want in. So in this example, I've ticked both because we've got both men and women added. And then for this section here, if you wanted to have the handicaps for the Eclectic using GA handicap, you would leave these options blank. But because in this test, I want it to use the people's daily handicap, what I've done is I've put in the slope of both the men's and the ladies' course. And I've also put in the scratch rating of the men's and ladies' course as well. And I've put the maximum handicap at 54. So that, if anyone's going right up to 54, they can be included in the Eclectic. I've also entered in the par, both of the male and female as well. So yeah, if you're using daily handicap, you would have to fill out all that information. But if you're using GA handicap and you want it to use their GA, then you wouldn't fill out any of that. You would leave it blank for the slope. You can also upload a sponsor banner, which would appear in the Eclectic page. So you can upload that. I believe it needs to be a JPEG or a PNG file. And then when we get to this section here, that's where you would tick the member categories of the categories of members that you're allowing into the Eclectic. So obviously you may not be, if it's a men's only Eclectic, you might be ticking only men's categories, or if it's a ladies only Eclectic, you may only be ticking ladies categories. But in this example, I've just ticked a few because I've only added in 4 people to the test. So you would tick the categories and then you would hit save down the bottom there. So because this is already saved, I'm just going to go back to the main page. Now, once you've ticked the categories, when we get to this page here, it's very important that you decide if you're going to lock handicaps at the start, because if you can't lock them midway through, because people's GA or daily handicaps might change from, the 29th of July going through to March, it may have already changed a lot there. So whenever you set up an Eclectic, if you do want to lock handicaps, make sure you do that at the very start before any rounds have been played. And at the moment, you can see it says lock HC. So that means that this hasn't been locked. So if you see that it says lock HC, you would tick that or select it, and that would then lock the handicaps so that if someone is off 10, they're going to be off 10 for the whole Eclectic. If you want handicaps to change throughout, then just leave that as it is. Also on this page, once you've set it up, the other thing you need to do, which this is one of the main support queries we get quite a lot, is if we click on the head icon, this is where it allows us to choose the individual members that belong to those 3 or 4 categories that I selected before. So a lot of the times on support, when people will call us, they'll say that there's no members showing up on the leaderboard. And one of the main reasons for that is that they haven't selected the individual members that they want to be included. So if you want everyone, you can just click on one player and then press Control A, and that will highlight everyone, and you can hit the arrows to move them all across. Otherwise, you can select individuals and move them across like I have in this occasion. So yeah, really important to tick your member categories and also select the individual members. So once you've done that, the next stage you would need to do in your Eclectic is make sure that each week where you have a competition, that you include it in the Eclectic. So when we go to the competitions page, you can see the 2 competitions that I've set up for today. I'll explain why we've done 2 competitions later on, but we've got 2 competitions for the 29th. So when we edit the competition, when they're still open, or when you're setting up the comp, down the very bottom, it'll have the section where you can tick the Eclectic that you want to include. So I've ticked that there. So we'll hit submit. And I've done the same for the second competition as well. So now if we close those competitions and close this one as well, we would then go to the Eclectic page. Now, once they're closed and you've ticked the Eclectic, that should then translate through to the Eclectic leaderboard. So when we click on Eclectic now and we click on the leaderboard, we can now see that it shows the scores that the people had in those competitions. And obviously there was 2 competitions there, so it's going to be showing the best score that they've had on each hole out of those 2 competitions. Obviously, if you had a bigger Eclectic, you will have A, B, and C here that you can select. And you can also select all if you want to show everyone. So there's not going to show people on this. If it says no scores available, sometimes you'll see that at the bottom of a list. That means that the player hasn't registered a score on every hole. So people are only going to show up on the Eclectic here on the leaderboard if they've registered a score on every hole. So after week 1 or week 2, you may not get people with a score over here on the right. And if it says score not available, it just means they'd have a few blanks. And that might be if you're playing a Stableford competition and people have picked up on those holes. So if it was a net competition, obviously they would have scored on every hole. But yeah, if it's Stableford, then you wouldn't. Okay, so then that's how you could do it there. Now, if you want to check what competitions are included in your Eclectic, you would click on the flag icon. And then that would show the competitions that you've linked. So that's a good little check that you can do, because if you've had a few competitions and someone said on a particular week that they had a 2 on a hole and you can't see that on the leaderboard, you can click on the flag icon and that allows you to see what competitions are included there. Now in Eclectic as well, there's no count back, so that will be added in a future release, but at the moment it will list people with the same number. So you can see these 2 players here, they both had 67 net, And so next to them, it shows 1 and 1. So they're sharing first place. So if your club wanted to do a count back at the moment, you would have to work that out manually, but we will be adding that in, that there will be count back option in Eclectics like there is for multi-round and general competitions. Now, if there was multiple grades and we were looking at A grade, for example, that would say A1 and A1. So it will always say the grade they're in if you select that as well, or if it was a graded Eclectic. I'll just look over my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything there. No, so I think that's sort of everything we've got in Eclectic, but the main things that, yeah, clubs really contact us about is, one, they won't have closed their competition, so make sure you always close the comp after it's been played, that you've selected that competition to be in Eclectic by editing it and going down the bottom and ticking it, and also that you've ticked the member categories and the last part selected the individual members. And if you do that, all the results should then feed through to the leaderboard. So the next stage we'll talk about is multi-round. So I'll go into the admin portal again. And so to access multi-round, we would go to competitions. And then we would select multi-round here. So for this example, I've created two. I've created a net and a gross, and I'll explain that in a moment. But when you were creating a new multi-round to start with, you would click on this option here. Now, once you've created the multi-round, if you can't see it, make sure you're on the correct month down here as well, because sometimes a club may have created a multi-round, but they can't see it. So just make sure you've selected the right month, and then they should show up here. Now, when we click on Manage Comp, this will take us to the same screen that we would see as if we had selected the Create multi-round. So you would always put in your first round date, which we've got in there. You would put in the name of what you want it to be called and the players. So, if it was a foursomes event, you could choose 2 and then change the format. It'll show only 2-player events. If it was a 3 and 4 person event, you could choose all the 3 and 4 persons. So for this example, I've left it on 1 because we've selected net. You can also choose your grade separations. So with the grade separations, there's no way to create a new one in this section or edit it, but you can do that if you go into a previous competition or an old competition. So you can open up an old competition in the competitions page. You can click Edit Competition, go down to Grade Separations, and that's where you can create a new grade template that you'll then be able to select in these options here. And you can edit an existing one if you want to edit the one you've already got. You'll see here that I've put Best Rounds 2, and that's because I've only added 2 competitions. I'm only going to add 2 competitions to this, so I've set that as 2. Now with multi-rounds, there's a 12-round limit, so if you have a multi-round where there's going to be more than 12 rounds, you could consider using the order of merit, but at the moment it's a 12-round maximum for multi-rounds. So I've set that to 2 because we're only going to be adding 2 competitions. You've also got the option to keep the handicap on the date of the first round, and some clubs will do that if they have a club championship where they want to freeze handicaps throughout all the rounds. So yeah, you can choose date of first round if you want to freeze them, or you can choose date on round played if you want people's handicaps to be changing throughout all the different rounds of the multi-round. Now, the tie resolution with count back for multi-rounds, if the scores were tied, at the end, what it would do is it would look to who had the best final round score. So if there was 4 rounds, and on round 4, both players, it would then look to see who had the best final round score to work out the overall winner if they were tied at the end of the 4 rounds. So it'll always look to the last round to see who's had the best. And if those scores are tied, it then goes down to the traditional count back of the last 9 on that last round, and then the last 6 holes, and then the last 3 and the last 1 if they're all tied as well. Now, once you've created your multi-round, you can also tick display on competition leaderboards here. So when a member logs into the portal and they go to leaderboards, then if that's ticked, the members will be able to see that multi-round there. So a lot of the calls we get on support as well is sometimes the members can't see the multi-round, and it's because that option there may have been forgotten to be selected. So always make sure you tick that if you want the members to be able to see the results. If you don't, because it might be a club championship or something you want to, hold the results off, then make sure you don't tick that. Now, when we tick on advanced options here, we have got some other options we can do. So, if there was 12 rounds, for example, we could put in that for someone to win the multi-round, they have to play in a minimum of 6. So you can put in the minimum of rounds that someone has to play in. You can tick live scoring as well. And that means that if you add the multi-round to the rolling leaderboard in the clubhouse, then you'll be able to see live scores as they come in. So not just scores at the end of the competition, but live scores for each member as they finish their round. So it just adds a bit more suspense if it was a club championship or something like that. You can also put in handicap adjustments. So, if you had the daily competition that was an open competition for all grades, but this particular multi-round was only for A grade players, then you can set minimum and maximum handicaps so that when you add the participants using the competition that's got everyone in it, it will only add players within the handicap limit that we set here. So you might put something like, -8, and then you might put to 12, if it was an A grade only multi-round. So what that would do is that would mean when you go to participants and add the competition, it's only going to add players that fall within this limit here. So I'll get rid of that. You can also apply a prize template here as well. So if we click on the drop down here, you've got all different types of prize templates you can choose. So if you don't want to set up the prizes manually in the multi-round, you can definitely select a prize template that you've created in your prize template area. Now to actually add, so I'm just going to cancel that option there. Sorry, I'll go back in. So to actually add players to the multi-round, you would click on participants next to round 1. So if we click on participants, and then it's going to bring up the competitions that we've got that we want to add from the 29th, because that's the start date of the multi-round. So both of these competitions have been created on the 29th, but for round 1, I'm just going to select that one and hit add players. So you can see that it's added the 4 players that were in that daily competition. I can click back to manage competition here. And then if I go down and select participants next to round 2, so this could be when perhaps if it was a one-day event, the afternoon round had already been played, or it could be the second round of a 36-hole event that was played on the following week. So when we click on participants, we can then click on the drop down again and choose round 2 to add, and then hit add players. Now, once the players are added, if there's certain players that you don't want included, like you don't want visitors included, you can just click delete round, and that would remove this player from that particular round. So you can delete individual members, and you can also delete them all if you happen to add the wrong competition by mistake. So if we do that, you'll see it goes back to blank. And then if I click on the drop down again and click add players, it adds them back in again. Now it saves automatically. There's no save button. So if we go back to manage competition, and we'll go back to the main multi-round screen, you can see now that it's got 4 players added to round 1 and round 2. Now, the reason I added a gross multi-round here is because if you have an event that might be club championships again, where you want to work out the best net winner, but you also want to work out the best gross winners, your daily competitions could just be net competitions. You don't need to create gross comps unless you want a daily result for the gross as well. But if you're only wanting an overall result for gross for the 2 rounds or the 4 rounds, you can click on to your multi-round again, and you can create a gross multi-round. Now, when we click on manage comp, click on participants and add those players from round 1. We would then go to multi-round again, click on manage comp, And then we would click on participants for round 2, choose that one, and we would click add players again. Now, when we go to multi-round main screen again and click on leaderboard, it's going to convert those scores that was from an original net competition into a gross. So that just saves a bit of work that you don't have to create a net daily competition if you're only looking for overall results. But if you are looking for daily results, then you would have to add a second net competition to that same day as well. Now, when we go to results as well, once the event had been finished, if you click on results, much like in a normal competition, you can create a full field report manually. And if we open that, that will have the results of the event. So that one is showing gross. Now, if we click on results for the net one, we can create that, open that, and that will have the net results. So they're all showing the net scores there. Now, with multi-round as well, you can add that to your rolling leaderboard in the clubhouse. So if it is a multi-round of a club championships, you can go to leaderboard up here. And if we click on auto leaderboard, that would create a leaderboard of today's competitions. So I'll click on that, and you can see it says quick leaderboard. So if we click on competitions, you can see that we've got the option to choose single or multi-round. So if we clicked on multi-round, we'd have to make sure that the start date here is the first round of the multi-round, and then you'd be able to choose the net or the gross. So if I chose that and then change that to gross as well, and it's not graded, so you wouldn't select them, but if we add that to list, so now we've got the gross multi-round, and we've also got the competitions as well. So if we click on view, that shows, the net round 2. I won't go through them all, but eventually that would also show the multi-round as well on your leaderboard. You can also add single competitions there as well, and you can also add your eclectics as well to the rolling leaderboard. So, and the order of merit, which we're going to cover, well, we've covered eclectic, and we're going to cover order of merit next. So you can add eclectic and order of merit, and not just your multi-rounds. I think I'll just make sure I've not missed anything there. Also, with if you had a foursomes event, this is another call that we get quite often. If you had a 27-hole event and it was both on the same day, like this is here, always make sure that you have 2 separate timesheets because you can't add 2 competitions to the one timesheet. So you can't add an 18-hole competition to the same timesheet that you're adding a 9-hole competition to. So always make sure that you have 2 separate timesheets. So you've got, if I go back to fixtures here, you'll see that I've got round 1 timesheet and round 2. So if you had a foursomes event, you would add your 18-hole to that one, and then you would add your 9-hole to that if it was a 27-hole foursomes event, for example. Because if you tried to add 2 competitions to the one timesheet, it doesn't allow you to register players if they're already in for the 18-hole competition. And if you want to quickly create this timesheet rather than having to create this one from scratch, you can go into the original timesheet where all the players would be. You can select configure event and clone event, and that will create a copy of this timesheet. You can then select configure event details and opening when you go into the clone timesheet, and you would be able to reword it, and you could remove the word cloned and rename it as round 2. So that's how you can quickly create another timesheet without having to manually create it and book in those players all over again. Okay, so I think that sort of covers everything we've got on multi-round. And I'll just go into the order of merit now. So if we go back to admin, now with the order of merit, it is an additional module. So some of your clubs may already have it. But if you don't, the cost of the Order of Merit is $425 plus GST. So if anyone's interested in getting the Order of Merit, please reach out to your state account manager. Okay, but what we would do to go to the Order of Merit, we can click on Admin and then select Order of Merit. Now, the Order of Merit is ideal if you're having a competition where you've got more than 12 rounds. Obviously, in the multi-round, we're limited to 12. So if you wanted an event that went a lot longer throughout the year, then the Order of Merit is what you would use. Now, the Order of Merit is basically a points-based system, very similar to the FedEx Cup on the PGA Tour. So it allows you to add all different types of points allocations throughout the year for different competitions. So the first thing you would do again is click on the Create button here. You would put in the name of what you want it to be called, maybe a short description, your date range. It may run for a year or however long you want it to be running. If you set display to yes, then members would be able to see the results again. So if it's no, then it would only be administrators that can see it. And then allow visitor, you would have to tick that as well. So if you've got competitions that you're adding each time, if you don't want visitors to be allowed to be in the Order of Merit, make sure that allow visitor is not selected. And then you can also do, much like the multi-round, use best competitions. So if it was an Order of Merit that went over 20 rounds, you could get it to just pick the best 5 scores and allocate points for the best 5 rounds that they've had. You can also add a sponsor banner as well, and that shows up in the website for you. So I won't create a new one because I've already created one here. But when you have created your Order of Merit, it will show up here. So the first thing you would need to do is you would select it, and then all these options become available. And you can also see the 2 competitions at the bottom. You can also add multi-rounds to Order of Merit as well, but today we're just adding individual competitions. So once we've got it highlighted, the first thing we need to do is choose which competitions we're going to include in the Order of Merit. So the first thing you would do is you would select the first one you want to include, which is the round 1, and then you would click on Allocate. And then once it gets to this stage, this is where you can choose how you're going to award points to players. So if you wanted to click on Add Points Allocation, you've got all the different options you can choose. So we've got countdown points. So what that might be is that, you set it to maybe 10 points for the maximum and you decrement it by 1. And so if we hit Save Allocation, you'll see that it goes 10, 9, 8, 7. So that's how that works. Now, if you've added that and you don't want to use that allocation, you've changed your mind, you can just click Clear All. It will set that back to 0. And then we can click on Add Points Allocation again, and we can choose Manual. So with the manual option, I'll just see that. Sorry, might go back. Sorry. So I'll just go to that one. I'll clear that. I'll go back. Sorry, you'd have to remove that first if you wanted to apply a different one. So you can see that's still applied. It's got the green tick on the competition, which means that this competition is selected for this Order of Merit. So if I click on List Allocations, if I decided I didn't want this one included, and some of the calls we get in support are sometimes a club will add multiple versions of the same competition by mistake. So if you see in the same description with the same date, what you can do is click on it. So you've got to make sure you select it first and then hit the red X, and that will delete it so that that competition is not included. So if we go back to admin, we just have to refresh our page and we click on Order of Merit again. You'll see that there's no, when I click on it, there's no ticks for that competition now. It doesn't have the green tick to say it's included. So if we want to add it again, we can click on it, click on Allocate. It'll take us back to this section again, and we can choose the different points as well. We can choose Stableford points. So if we chose Stableford points, it would convert that net score into Stableford points and award that number of points to people. So if someone's net score was 72 and that converted into 36 points, it would give someone 36 points for that particular competition. You can also do across the board, which basically gives the same score to everyone. And then you can do manual. So if we choose manual and hit save, that allows us to manually put in what we want to give. So rather than choosing a decrement or a set figure, you can manually put in how much you want to give there. I'll clear that. And you can also do grade scores. So what that will do is you might decide you're going to give, 100 points for a hole in one. You might give 50 points for an eagle. You might give 75 for an albatross, and you might give 25 with a birdie. So what that would do is that would allocate points based on if they've had a hole in one, an eagle, an albatross, or a birdie throughout their round. So that one isn't used as often, but that is an option. And then the other one we have got, click on that, is custom method. So when we click on custom method, we then have all these options that we can choose here based on what we've created previously. And this is where we can create a method that might go over 50 point cycles. So I'll show you what I mean with that. If we get out of that and we click on manage custom methods, this is where you can actually create the sort of type of points allocation that you want to give. So this one is much like a FedEx points allocation. This one, we've got some other ones here, and we've got this one I created here. So advanced competition webinar one. So we've got 80 points, 100 points, 80 points, 60 points, 40 points, 20 points, 10 points, and that. So if I selected that and hit save and close, that creates it. So to actually allocate it, we would click on add points allocation. We would choose custom method, and then we would choose the one we want to select and hit save. And then you can see that it's added those points that we set up in the custom methods. So custom methods allows you to give a lot more points variation. You just have to put a comma next to every difference. So you'd put 100, 80, So again, you click on manage methods. And this is how you can do a new one. So if we type test, it might go 100, 80, 70, 60. So that's how you can create them and save them. And then they'll be available down the bottom if you want to select them later on. So that's how you can do that one. I'll just look over my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. Right, so when we go back to the main screen, once we've added a allocation, we can click on it. We'll see what's selected. And then if we click on leaderboard, that shows us the overall leaderboard as well. So you can export that to Excel and PDF as well if you want, if you're wanting to print it out and put it up on a notice board. And then if we go back, the other thing you can do as well is you can look at the competitions that you've applied to that order of merit. So when we highlight it and click on list on allocations, you can see that same competition we've attached. And then if you wanted to, you can select it and remove it again. You can also block players. So when we click on block players here, it's going to have the people participating based on the competitions that you've added. So these 4 people are in the competition that I added from down here. And if I wanted to block any of those, I would just click on the player's name and move him to the right. And that would mean that only the 3 remaining would show up on the leaderboard. So you can block individual players as well. Now, with the order of merit, another new feature that we will be coming up with, sorry, if I just go back to it, when we select it and go to leaderboard, we will have a graded option appearing in one of our upcoming future builds. So that will be in maybe one of the next 2 or 3 builds coming out, and you'll be able to grade it by A, B, and C grade, much like you can with multi-rounds and eclectics. So that's a new feature that we're looking forward to. I'll just look over my notes again to see if I've missed anything. So with when we're editing the order of merit, if we've got display set as yes, then the members again would be able to see that order of merit when they go into the members portal and they see leaderboards, and they would scroll to the bottom and there'll be a little link for order of merit. So they can click on that if they want to view the order of merit leaderboards as well. I think that sort of covers most of what I was wanting to go through, but I know Mackenzie would have been helping out with any questions people have got. But if there's any questions that people have got that I haven't answered. I'll have a look now in the chat. So I can see here I'm having a trouble with the multi-round event. We're doing a best 3 of 4 to count only. We locked the handicap from date of first round. However, we have members who couldn't play the first round. Their first round was a week later, but are still ineligible to win as per the conditions. We missed the first round. Any solutions on this one? We might need to get back to you on that one. Sorry for someone who wrote the message about the best 3 of 4 rounds. I'll have to, perhaps if you send an email to our support, support@miclub.com.au, I can look into that one for you. Can the multi-round rounds be renamed to identify, example, weekday, weekend rounds of the same event? So Dan, so for that, you'd probably have to, yeah, definitely rename the multi-round event. So I'll show you if we go to multi-round. So when you've got the manage comp, you can click on manage comp, and where it's got competition name here, you could go to the end here and, you could put midweek if that's only for your midweek competitions and save it. So you might have a weekend multi-round and a weekday one, and then you would just decide to add the weekday competitions to the weekday multi-round, and then you might add your weekend competitions to the weekend multi-round, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question there, Dan. And yes, Sandy, yes, sorry if I didn't cover that on the auto adjust handicaps. If you tick the auto adjust handicap, much like in your normal competitions, it will bring the handicap down. So if someone's off 54 as their GA and you tick auto adjust handicap and put in 45, it'll bring them back down to 45 if you don't want someone going all the way up to 54. I might reach out to you, Dan, if that hasn't fully answered your question, sorry. Yeah, so with the best in the order of merit there, Andrew, yeah, I can discuss offline with you as well. But basically what it would do is if you had 10 rounds for the order of merit and you put in 5, it's just going to pick the best 5 scores to include in the order of merit. So you may have to think about possibly creating 2. I will just show you the best rounds option there. So if we go to order of merit again, so we've already added this one, so I might select this one and click on allocate. And I'll hopefully choose the same type of points method that I did before, that one. And save. Okay, so that's just where we set them up. Custom method. Then we'll go back and I'll just make sure on the first round that I've done the same thing. So where are we? Allocate. Okay. Points allocation. Custom method. Save. And then back. So if we click on that and we edit it, so if we put in 1 there, because we've only got 2 competitions, if we hit submit, that would mean that out of these 2 competitions that I've applied, it's only going to count the points of the best round that they had for those 2 competitions. So yeah, if someone had a better score in round 2 than they did in round 1, then it will count the round 2 points towards the order of merit. Hopefully that makes sense. And Sandy, for order of merit, with the best round and a player plays more than 1 round, at the moment it shows only the best score. Is there a way of showing all their scores, not just the best? Yeah, so with the multi-round for that, if you've only got best round set to 1, yeah, unfortunately it's only just going to show the best score they've had on the leaderboard. So you would have to remove that if you wanted it to show all 4. We may be able to put that in as a dev request in the future so that it could possibly show all 4 and then highlight the best one. But we'd have to speak to our developers on that one, Sandy, if that makes sense. No, I think, well, that sort of takes us up to about 45 minutes. So Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long, and everyone got an idea of how to use those. I'm sure a lot of you would have already understood some of the parts, but hopefully there's some extra parts there that you may not have been aware of. If you have any additional questions, just reach out to support@miclub.com.au, and we'll try to get back to you on some of those questions we might have missed in the chat or we didn't answer it fully. But thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll speak to everyone again next time I make contact.